As you guys know, F1 is going to Miami this weekend. By the time you're seeing this video, it might have already passed, but what's really cool is how they made this track even possible. I was told that there is a fake marina on this track, and I got to see it for myself. So here's a video of how the Miami F1 track was built. Let's get right into this.
Miami, famous for its beaches, nightlife, multicultural atmosphere, and its F1 races that take place in a parking lot.
Yes.
No, I'm not joking. This is the aerial shot of the Hard Rock Stadium where the Miami Grand Prix is held, and this is it in 2021.
Wow.
Turns 11, 12 and 13 were quite literally parking spaces. You may be thinking, building an F1 track in a car park must have made it easier.
Holy crap.
Right?
It's around the stadium.
From breaking ground to the first race, they had a timeline of just 12 months, which is hard enough. But in this time, the grounds were still hosting events like Miami Dolphin matches in the NFL, the Miami Open tennis tournament, concerts, and so much more. They had to phase the construction process to allow these events to operate without disruption, but also have the track ready in time. And then there's the complexities of the fake marina, which went viral, largely because of videos like this. But creating it was actually harder than you may think. To understand how they built the Miami F1 track, we need to discuss the difficulties of the design process, how it was physically built in under a year, and finally, the changes they made after facing some pretty strong criticism.
Wow. So I just want to point out that I guess when you're at the F1 race, you could go inside the stadium and watch it from there. I'm not sure how that works, but I looked at the tickets, man, and they were $7,000 just for flight, hotel. Anyways, let's see how it was designed. I can't wait for this weekend.
Located at the Hard Rock Stadium complex, the Miami International Autodrome is a temporary circuit designed to have a permanent feel. In 2018, Formula One laid out their plans to host a race in downtown Miami, with a debut planned for the 2019 season. However, after logistical and political challenges, the idea was postponed. One of the key advocates of an F1 race in Miami was Stephen Ross, who also owns the Hard Rock Stadium. He commissioned UK-based Apex Circuit Design to lead the project, evaluating 75 potential layouts and simulating 36 of those. The site had many constraints such as minimal elevation gain, poor drainage infrastructure, and the biggest issue, the current facilities already in place to host other sporting and entertainment events. They eventually settled on the current 5.41 kilometer configuration. It features 19 corners with high-speed straights, 3 DRS zones, and has top speeds of 350 kilometers per hour. It's fair to say the racing wasn't too well received in its first year, but we'll come back to how they dealt with that later.
Really?
There was still pushback from local residents for this track, but a deal was worked out which would see the city receive $5 million in funding over 10 years for residents and businesses. Formula One agreed, and the contract was finally signed and announced at Imola on April the 19th, 2021, with the track needing to be ready for its first race.
Were the people upset because they took away farmland or jobs? Like, what did they take away? I think it was farms.
On May the 8th, 2022. Just quickly, my goal is to hit 100,000 subscribers, so if you're enjoying this content, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the subscribe button.
Yeah, subscribe to Everything Explained, guys. I will link the original video in my description. If you guys are fed up of listening to me talk and just want to listen, go click on the link in the description. But for now, if you want my input as well, stay tuned. Let's watch this.
Construction had to begin immediately. So how did they do it? Ground was broke in Miami in April 2021, with less than 12 months to turn the car park into a Formula One track. As I mentioned earlier, the whole process was phased so that the other sporting events went on as planned with no
farming, it was actually just parking lots.
Interruptions. Over this period, £14 million of steel and aluminium, or aluminum for my Americans watching,
Aluminum.
1.3 million bolts and 1,130 tons of concrete were used.
Where does he get
In
these
total,
stats?
7 miles of concrete barriers and fencing were installed.
ChatGPT.
Apex Circuit Design used an asset management tool called Apex Build to track each of these barriers as a separate asset. Their software allowed them to visually see if each item is in the correct place. This also makes the post-race pack-up much quicker.
Wow.
Some of the drivers, mainly Carlos Sainz and Esteban Ocon, were furious with some of the placements of these concrete barriers, as they both suffered high-impact crashes, which would have been softened by the use of Tech Pro barriers. The drainage infrastructure on site didn't meet the required safety levels.
Really?
The land is mostly flat, and the stadium is only 1.5 meters above the Atlantic Ocean. So to deal with this, a company called ACO installed 18,000 linear feet of drainage system around the track in a 9-month period.
How?
Formula 1 is the most technologically advanced sport in the world.
Yes, it is.
Teams need access to tons of data instantly, whether that be telemetry, lap times, or weather forecasting systems. To cope with these demands, they installed an astronomical 56,782 miles of fibre and cabling. The road surface at the Miami International Autodrome is unique because it's made from a special mix of local lime rock and granite brought in by train from Georgia.
I mean, that has to be smooth, man. You can't have any bumps. The slightest little bump or manhole can send a car crashing, you know?
Usually, lime rock is bad for Formula 1 tracks because it polishes smooth and loses grip. But Miami's lime rock has a high silica content, meaning its texture is like mini shards of glass. As the lime rock breaks down, it exposes more of this silica, meaning it stays rough and grippy. Well, so they thought anyway, but as we saw in 2022, this wasn't exactly the case, but we'll come back to that. Local teams built the basic layers of the track, but experts from Riffenberg Construction came in for the final surface layer. They used a method called echelon paving, where they laid the asphalt with multiple machines side by side, meaning the lanes would fuse together whilst hot, making the surface stronger. Overall, 24,000 tons of asphalt was used. If you watched the inaugural Miami Grand Prix in 2022, you'll know that they came under fire for the fake marina that they created at turns 6, 7 and 8. They did this by placing 10 yachts on a vinyl floor designed to look like water. Creating it isn't as simple as you may think. They had to find transportation vendors with specialist equipment and knowledge to remove the boats from water, make them road legal, which requires modification of the boat itself, and then stage them on the vinyl floor. There aren't many companies who can carry out this bespoke task. Aside from the physical construction, there was a lot of cosmetic work required. They wanted a theme to flow throughout the whole complex, and to combine the F1 experience with the stadium.
Man, that's
which
so
is why they
cool.
opted to use the signature aqua colour wherever possible.
Yeah.
They had 30 different renderings of the runoff area before settling on a design which mimics the shadow of a palm tree. In the final few weeks leading up to the first race, a team painted the concrete barriers to display the current set of sponsors. In total, 3,100 gallons of paint was used. There were periods where the track was being worked on almost 24 hours a day, so that it was ready for its first race, which they successfully did. But as I've alluded to multiple times throughout this video, there were no shortages of complaints from fans and drivers alike, for multiple different reasons. So what did they change?
How the Miami F1 track has changed. Tell me.
The Miami F1 track goes through changes every year, even without intentional improvements. That's because most of the facilities, such as the grandstands and safety barriers, are temporary, so they are dismantled and put into storage for the following year. The organisers of the Miami Grand Prix, however, made a multitude of changes to improve the race weekend, and these changes weren't just aimed at the racing itself. They moved the paddock inside the Hard Rock Stadium, creating what they labelled as a team village, allowing them to have expanded hospitality spaces. They also gave access to fans who bought a campus pass to level 300 of the Hard Rock Stadium, meaning they can look directly into this village. They added 3,000 new grandstand seats, installed more water refill stations, and created shaded areas for fans to escape the Miami sun. They even created different versions of the circuit to host multiple racing events throughout the year to expand into other motorsports. But without a doubt, one of the biggest criticisms of hosting Formula 1 in Miami was the road surface. The drivers claimed the grip was so low that it felt like driving on intermediate tyres despite it being dry. On top of this, the track layout didn't really promote many overtaking opportunities, so Tilker engineers were commissioned to oversee a repaving of the whole track. This didn't involve physical track changes, however, like removing the slow chicane which Lewis Hamilton compared to a B&Q car park. Despite this, the 2023 race was clearly an improvement as there were more on-track overtakes and the drivers, while not saying it's perfect, expressed more positive feelings about the racing than they did in 2022.
Max took it down.
I think it's fair to say the Miami Grand Prix organisers have achieved their goal of being bold and different. Not every decision they made paid off, but you've got to give them credit.
Yeah, you've got to give them credit
to improve. Thank you to my members on screen now who saw this video early, and if you want to watch more Formula 1 track builds, click the playlist on screen now.
Wow, this guy, that's all he does? Everything explained. Wow, this guy does a really good job making these videos, and I'm going to definitely link this in my channel, so hopefully he's okay with that. I just subscribed. Hope you guys do as well, and enjoy this video. Peace out, boys.